Hi, today I am going to explain an action drama comedy film Big Brother release 2018. Watch out, spoilers ahead, watch it at your own risk. Henry has returned to Hong Kong after years of serving in the US military. Eager to start a teaching career, he visits his old school, Tak Kai Secondary. The principal points out that Henry lacks teaching experience. However, after seeing a recommendation letter from a high-ranking official, the principal decides to give him the job. Before Henry leaves, the principal warns him that the class he's assigned to teach is the worst in the school. On the morning of his first day, Henry walks into the classroom and finds it in complete disarray. Some students are sleeping, others are singing, some are playing video games, and several are cooking ramen on a portable stove. Despite his presence, the students continue to ignore him and carry on with their activities. Henry tries to get their attention, but the students pretend not to hear him. Frustrated, he decides to take a different approach and starts walking around the classroom, commenting on their activities. He advises the students cooking ramen to eat less of it because it contains too much sodium. He then approaches Zufa, who is playing the ukulele, and offers him some tips. Similarly, he warns a gamer about the potential radiation from staring at the screen all day. As the students finally begin to listen, Henry introduces himself and writes his name and phone number on the board, which prompts laughter due to his poor handwriting. One student even calls his phone, telling him to leave the class, but Henry laughs it off. The kids soon revert to ignoring him and continue their activities. Having had enough, Henry uses a rubber band and a piece of chalk to trigger the fire sprinkler in the room. The students quickly scatter to avoid getting wet. With their full attention on him, he officially welcomes them to his class. After class, a group of 5 of the lowest-ranking students gathers in the sports supply room to smoke. The leader of the group, Jack, has a crush on an A-grade student from another class. When the others catch him staring at her picture, they tease him. This group has an ongoing rivalry with the rich and spoiled kids from the school's basketball team. The basketball players enter the supply room and mock Jack as usual for being poor. Later, while the basketball team is practicing, Jack and his group watch from nearby. Jack deliberately drops a bottle onto the court, causing the team leader to fall. The group laughs but is quickly given detention by Miss Liang, the school's English teacher. To avoid detention, they play a prank on her and run away while she is busy cleaning her desk. Meanwhile, the school principal is distressed because the education board is planning to deduct 20% of their annual funding. Representatives from the board arrive to inspect how the funds are being used. Same time, Henry enters the classroom where the students have set up a bucket of water to prank him. However, his reflexes are quick and he manages to push the bucket away. The students, who had been waiting to make fun of him, are left shocked when Henry swiftly pushes away the falling bucket. Henry asks Jack for his packet of cigarettes, knowing that he smokes. Curious about what Henry will do, Jack hands him the pack. Henry then asks Zufa to name the 3 main ingredients in a cigarette. When Zufa replies correctly, Henry allows him to skip class for the day. This prompts the other students to bang on their desks, demanding the same privilege. Once they calm down, Henry gives each student a cigarette and asks them to analyze it. He knows that simply talking about the health effects won't make an impact, so he engages them by discussing the consequences of smoking and how tar forms in their lungs. For the first time, the students pay attention and show interest in learning. When the bell rings, Henry asks them to return the cigarettes. Although they are reluctant, they comply. That day in the cafeteria, the captain of the basketball team trips Jack's friend Bruce, sparking a quarrel between the groups. The argument quickly escalates into a full-blown fight, with students throwing food and tables, causing extensive damage. Later, Henry learns that 5 students from his class have been temporarily suspended for starting the fight. Finding Jack still fighting his opponent in the hallway, Henry intrudes and stops them. When Henry asks him to calm down, Jack accuses the school of being unfair, claiming that the rich kids never face any punishment. After school, Henry decides to learn more about the suspended students by going through their files. He discovers that the first student, Zufa, is the son of a Pakistani immigrant and faces frequent racial discrimination. Policemen in his locality often accuse him of stealing. Despite these challenges, Zufa dreams of becoming a musician. The second student, Dinan, has been a frustration to her father ever since her birth, because he wanted a son. During her life, Dinan has struggled to earn her father's respect, even cutting her hair short and playing with cars to appear more like a boy. Despite her efforts, her father continues to ignore her and dotes on her younger brother, treating him like a prince. Then, there are brothers named Bruce and Chris. Their mother ran away with another man when they were only kids, which turned their father into an alcoholic. The brothers had to rely on each other while growing up. Bruce became obsessed with video games to escape reality, while Chris worked hard at a grocery store to support the family. Lastly, Henry can find no information about Jack's family background. In the following scene, we see Jack working as a waiter in a restaurant. An MMA bettor, Jianying, arrives at the restaurant with his business partners. When Jianying isn't looking, Jack steals his fancy lighter but is caught. Jianying's men beat him up as Jianying checks Jack's ID. After discovering that Jack is a student, Jianying gives him some money and offers him a job as their food delivery man. Meanwhile, Henry visits Zufa's home and finds him running away from his father and his associates after stealing a ticket. Henry helps him at first but, upon learning why he is being chased, sides with Zufa's father. Later, Henry and Zufa hang out at a bridge. To motivate Zufa to pursue his dreams, Henry sings with a band performing in the streets. Moments later, Zufa joins him, singing in front of people for the first time since being bullied at school years ago. Meanwhile, Bruce and Chris's father comes home late as usual and orders them to bring him a beer from the store. When the brothers refuse, he angrily yells at them to get out of his house. The next day, Henry meets with their father and convinces him to go to rehab for the sake of his son's well-being. In meantime, Dinan's father brings her a bag of makeup products and asks her to act like a girl for once. Furious at him for always making her feel short, Dinan applies the makeup on her younger brother and sneaks out of the house with the car keys. She is about to drive away in her father's car, but is stopped by Henry just in time. He tells her that driving without a license is illegal and advises an alternate. They go to a go-kart race track, where Henry also invites Dinan's father. He makes them race against each other. The father and daughter show no mercy during the race and finally end up outside the track. Suddenly, Dinan's go-kart is hit by another vehicle, but she manages to dodge it. Naive of this, her father fears the worst and cries, mourning what he believes is his daughter's death. With the reaction, Dinan realizes that he does love her, and she hugs him tightly. The next day at school, Bruce and Chris, along with a group, are sent to a rehabilitation center to interview a recovering alcoholic. They are shocked to find out that the person they have to interview is their father. The students ask him how he started drinking. The man explains that he loved his wife dearly, but she left him at the lowest point of his life, which led him to start drinking and neglecting his responsibilities as a father. He doesn't reveal that Bruce and Chris are his sons, but apologizes to them. By the end of the interview, the brothers are left in tears. Elsewhere, Jack has started working for the MMA bettor Jianying. Jianying offers Jack a lot of money to drug the fighter's drink in the next game. Jack is reluctant but is forced to accept the offer. On the day of the fight, Jianying sponsors a fighter but bets on his loss. Jack tries to drug the fighter's drink but is caught in the act. Before he can blame Jianying, he is beaten up and locked inside a locker. A while later, Henry arrives at the venue and asks the fighters if they have seen his student. The men tell him to leave, but Jack, from inside the locker, yells for help. Realizing that Jack is trapped, Henry springs into action and overpowers the men easily. When the fighters step in, the situation intensifies, but Henry skillfully dodges their attacks. By the end of the altercation, Henry knocks out their best fighter, who was supposed to compete in a few minutes. In the following scene, Henry is at the hospital being treated for his wounds. Jack tries to reveal the truth about Jianying, but Henry advises him to stay quiet. The incident makes it to the television, and Henry becomes known as the man who beat up a professional fighter to save his student. His popularity in school grows, and the students start to respect him. They even stand up to welcome him to class, a stark contrast to their earlier behavior. A flashback reveals that Henry used to be a prankster in his school days. He once threw water balloons at a student who was playing piano for the parents at an event, and later fought the same student, breaking his hand. This fight led to his suspension and subsequent move to the States. From that day forward, the students pay attention when Henry teaches and study hard for the upcoming college entrance test. Everyone is making progress, except Bruce, who has become addicted to pills. While Chris turned to video games to cope with their family problems, Bruce started using drugs. His addiction leaves him unfocused, and he performs poorly on the mock entrance test. Henry promises to help him, but Bruce grows more depressed over time. Finally, Bruce jumps off the balcony of their house. He is rushed to the hospital and falls into a coma. The media twists the story, blaming the school and Henry for Bruce's actions. The officials from the education board interview Henry and decide to revoke his teaching license. As Henry packs his things and leaves the school, the students chase after him, pleading for him to stay. Though heartbroken by his departure, They resolve to ace their upcoming test to make him proud. From that day, they study twice as hard to prove to the board that Henry is a good teacher. On the day of the test, Jack and his classmates receive a text from Henry asking them to meet at the school an hour before the exam. When the students gather, they discover it was a trick by Jianying to keep them confined at the school, so they won't make it to the examination hall on time. Jianying is doing this to teach Henry a lesson. A while later, Henry arrives at school and finds out about Jianying's plan. He lets the students free and fights all of Jianying's people to stop them from harming the children. They escape and quickly make their way to the examination hall, while Henry fights Jianying. While they are fighting one-on-one, Jianying reveals that he was the guy who Henry had thrown water balloons at when he was little. It turns out that since Henry broke his arm, he wasn't able to compete in a big music competition. Ever since the incident, he hasn't touched a piano and blames Henry for ruining his dream. Henry tries to reason with him but is attacked yet again. They struggle to get a hold of a knife. At last, Henry gets a chase to kill him but doesn't do it. He asks for forgiveness for what he did when he was little and walks away. The students reach the examination hall just in time and complete the test. A few weeks later, they all pass with flying colors. Jianying begins playing the piano again, though he has a lot of practice ahead to regain his former skill. Bruce recovers quickly and promises to take the entrance test next year. The principal is delighted because the education board decides to give the school a 20% bonus in funding due to the students' excellent performance in the entrance test. Henry returns to teaching and he uses the fire sprinkler trick on a new batch of students. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and hit the like button to help the channel out. Thank you very much for watching.